I do a lot of conferences that way.
I haven't used Zoom, I don't think, but I've used FaceTime and
Pretty cool.
a few other different whiz-bang apps that
Yeah.
do the same thing.
Okay, I'm gonna hit the record button.
Alright.
How's your son doing? His Boy Scout troop.
Pretty good. He's still kind of getting his feet wet. So he's only been there about a month, and now everything's stopped. But we're trying to work on stuff at home.
I'll say he made quite an impression.
Alright, ready?
He doesn't know when to stop.
Neither does mine.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. Welcome, everybody.
Brooks,
Yes?
Jacobs,
Here.
Holmberg,
Here.
Allen, here, Lund,
Here. Approval of city council minutes.
Move to approve.
Brooks,
Yes?
Jacobs,
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes.
Allen, yes, Lund,
Yes. Moving on to adoption of agenda.
move to adopt. Brooks,
Yes?
Jacobs,
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes.
Allen, yes, Lund,
Yes. Moving on to item 5, first and second reading ordinance. An ordinance of the city of Warrensburg ratifying the declaration of emergency of the city manager dated March 17, 2020, ratifying regulations adopted thereunder, and extending the duration of the emergency declaration pending further action by the city council. Harold.
So, given that we're a council manager form of government, the council through city code has authorized me as the city manager to declare a state of emergency. However, it does have a time limit of 21 days, and I have no ability to extend that. Given the declarations from the President of the United States and the governor and those, we do anticipate this going longer than 21 days. So in consultation with legal counsel, it was decided that having council ratify that and then leave that open-ended until the council takes action to cease the state of emergency would be the best course of action for handling this situation. So that's what is on the agenda this evening for the council, is that ordinance that puts that in place. It includes the 5 restrictions that I have recommended be put in place at this time. Of course, council can discuss anything else that they would like to consider as part of that in their council action. This is your moment to discuss that, but at the end of the day, the staff does recommend that the ordinance be ratified with that open period until the council takes action to cease the state of emergency.
Quick question. We had talked previously about needing to adopt the FEMA costs.
Yeah, the schedule of fees.
Schedule of fees, thank you. Do we need to take action on that now as well, or is it just?
No, we're fine on that. We try to keep the agenda to minimum items tonight. We haven't had council approve that in years anyway, so I think we're okay on that for now.
Okay.
So is there, I mean, so let's say this thing ends on a Tuesday. Obviously, we don't have a meeting till maybe that next Monday. Is there any impact of waiting till that Monday to terminate it, or are we going to have a special meeting to terminate?
When we get to that point, I can discuss with council what you'd like to do. If you'd like to have a special meeting, we can schedule a special meeting to do just that one course of action. Or if you guys want to wait until the next meeting, that'll be a decision of the council at that point.
Okay.
I suspect we'll have several meetings before we are
I do too.
able to close that, and we'll probably be able to select
I
it.
do too.
You know, looking down the road is my guess. Follow the lead of the county and the state and see what happens. Any other questions for Harold?
I moved it, said bill goes to second reading by title.
Second?
Brooks,
No second either.
Yes.
Jacobs,
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes.
Allen, yes, Lund,
Yes. she's gonna read it.
Sorry, go ahead.
An ordinance of the city of Warrensburg ratifying the declaration of emergency of the city manager dated March 17th, 2020, ratifying regulations adopted thereunder and extending the duration of the emergency declaration pending further action by the city council. This is for adoption or rejection. Brooks,
Yes.
Jacobs,
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Lund.
Yes. Moving on to item 6, other business. Fiscal year 2019 audit report and presentation. Marcella.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening I'll present the audit report for fiscal year 2019 ending September 30th of 2019. This presentation is normally presented by our audit firm, Mr. John Cummings. He has provided this slide presentation for us to use this evening and highlight the audit report. He has stated that if you have any questions, he'll be happy to answer those by phone, or if we choose to have a meeting where he is able to be present later to go over this in more detail, he'll be happy to accommodate that. And I'll answer questions to the best of my ability as we go, or provide answers as a follow-up if I don't have those available this evening. And so the independent audit report is the audited financials for the city governmental activities, business type activities for each major fund and the discretely presented component unit. Management is responsible for the financial statements and their fair presentation in accordance with the accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. The auditors are responsible for expressing opinions of the financial statements. Our audit was performed in accordance with the auditing standards generally accepted by the United States of America and the standards applicable to financial audits contained in the government accounting standards issued by the Comptroller General of the United States. Our auditor's opinion of the financial statements listed present fairly in all material aspects the respective financial position of the city. This is an unmodified or clean opinion and is the best possible result and the same that's been received in previous years. As we go through this, the balance sheet on page 21 of the actual report, it talks about the general fund assets of $6,431,860 reflected an increase of $82,882 compared to last year. The park fund assets are $1,337,713, reflected an increase of $128,499, of which $103,450 related to cash and investments. This last year, our cash and investments had earned quite a bit of money, and unfortunately, that's started to go the other direction, as I'm sure you all are very well aware of. The capital improvements transportation assets decreased $403,723 from prior year. This is primarily because of cash and the grants receivable. We've gotten some grant money in 2018 that we hadn't actually received the cash, so we received that. The capital improvements half-cent sales tax assets increased $191,336 from prior year, again due to primary increase in cash. The neighborhood improvement district fund assets increased $178,757 due to the sale of the lots and an increase in the cash. The net reduction in special assessments is also reflected in that. The capital bond fund assets decreased as budgeted by $1.7 million, so that's the GO bonds where we've spent that money down. And the city established a vehicle fund for vehicle replacement purposes, and the year ended at $66,799. In turn, the liabilities increased $44,358 due to primarily the collaborations payable of $33,308. The park fund liabilities increased $16,742 due to an even split in the way that's reflected in the statements between the payables and unearned revenues. The capital improvements sales half-cent fund liabilities increased $73,155 due primarily to the accounts payable items referenced as Station 2 roof of $50,000 and the carpet projects of $7,000 at year end. The capital improvements transportation fund liabilities decreased $388,732 from prior year, due primarily to not having the grant related accounts payable items that we had in 2018. The capital improvement bond fund liabilities decreased $433,039 due to accounts payable. In the governmental funds page, it reflects the variances in fund balances after restatement. So the fund balance decreased by a total of $747,009. However, when you eliminate the bond fund activity, it actually shows the governmental funds increased $580,239. And general fund in itself increased $39,017 for the year. In the revenues and statements of changes in fund balance, general fund revenue variances decreased into taxes, licenses and permits, grants were offset by increases in other revenue categories that also ranged from $30,000 to $58,000. The general fund expenditure variances, we made some larger investments in the area of other support services of $106,000, informational technology at $142,000, public health and safety of $192,000, and transportation of $173,000. The only areas that saw decreases in expenses for the general fund were through community development, down $2,000, and the cemetery down $38,000. Overall, the general fund expenditures increased $684,397. As stated earlier, the actual general fund balance increased $39,017, and the total governmental fund decreases were $747,009. The net position for the proprietary funds, which is your water pollution control funds and the internal service funds, current assets increased in the water pollution control by $516,000. Of that, $495,000 was in cash and investments. Total assets for the water pollution control declined by $514,000, primarily due to depreciation of capital assets of $1.5 million. The internal service assets increased $91,000 from prior year. That's to fund our healthcare processes. The net position for the water pollution control liabilities decreased by $1.2 million. The water pollution control net position actually increased $713,049. The internal service liabilities increased $65,000 from 2018, and the internal service balance increased $56,000 from 2018. The expenses for water pollution control for contractual services decreased cost of $133,656 from 2018. Supply costs decreasing by $97,658, and utility costs were down $34,664. These things were all offset in personnel costs of $23,683 and repairs and maintenance of $48,807. The claims cost on our internal service fund increased by $138,270, and the admin fees increased by $51,099. Also received was the management letters of recommendation, and this really outlines some of our new requirements by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. The leases as GASB statement number 87, so that's reflected in these statements on how we handle our lease purchases of any equipment and processes that we have. So we're looking at those and make sure that those are completely implemented as we finish 2020. There's also a recommendation to go over the bank depository agreements, which I have done those and implemented some of the controls on when checks would be honored and through our positive pieces. And just to make sure that we have the correct personnel, authorizations in the banking agreement. So that's been reviewed and completed. The cybersecurity is another piece that I know, our IT division has been working on very diligently. It's covered in our insurance premiums as an additional, piece for any cyber threats that we may have to encounter, which we put in place most of those not to. And we are in constant, review of the internal audit processes to make sure that we've got tight internal controls in all of the pieces as we go through this. We all know, and John talks about this in here, what we're dealing with as far as our social distancing and our telework and remote work. So he just mentions that, as we review that, to watch it, any impact it's gonna have on internal controls specifically, and make sure that we've adopted control processes as we implement emergency procedures and other processes across our organization, along with every other organization, throughout. The other piece is another standard for fiduciary activities, which just means that we have to report those in our, as we disclose those, the pension and employee benefits trust funds, the investment trust funds, the private purpose trust funds, so those are all listed in here, and we'll have to change some of those reporting requirements as we close out 2020. And lastly, in 2022, GASB 91 is a conduit debt obligations, which means any of the debt that the county or the school district, any of the other governmental entities will have to be listed in our audit report as we go forward. Questions?
Debt we're not responsible for?
Debt we're not responsible for, but yet it impacts our citizens, so it has to be disclosed.
What would be an example of that?
The bond issue that the school district is getting ready, I think they have bonds out there now, but they're getting ready to issue more debt. And so it just lists that in the audit report as other required information, so that the citizens that are reviewing it, and then they see all of it. So as a citizen of the county, the city, and the school district, you see what debt you're paying to each one of your governmental entities that your taxes go for.
Or the state will have to report that way.
Other questions, comments, anything else I can help in this report of numbers? We ended up in a good spot. That's the whole key, is to see fund balance and cash balances, maintain relatively steady, at least for now, and we'll go forward from.
I like that the city's obligation to debt is 5%. That's reasonably low. That keeps us free. I'm somebody that's fiscally conservative, so I'd like to see it at 0, but whenever you're borrowing from the future to do, so that's neat. Well done, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Quick
Let me
question.
know, please.
Quick question about the debt. Because we refinanced the city debt recently, with rates dropping again, would it be possible for us to refinance it at a significantly lower rate, or is that?
With municipal bonds, you only have certain periods of time that you're eligible to refinance.
Okay.
So we did that as soon as we could,
Right.
because rates were good at that time.
Right.
And of course, not knowing the future, we didn't know that they were gonna get any better.
Yeah,
But yeah,
Black swan.
we're prohibited from refinancing often. It's really like maybe once or twice during the lifetime of the bonds, and it's usually every 5 or 10 years or something
Okay.
like that.
It's now a 10-year window, with the new tax laws that were adopted in 2017. They eliminated what we called as our advanced refunding, which the advanced refunding gave you that 5-year window, where now you're limited to a 10-year window. Now, if Washington DC changes that again in this whole mess, which is some of the things that some of the organizations I belong to is promoting and trying to encourage, because everybody is gonna need to be able to either reduce that interest obligation and or be able to borrow more money. So that's part of the whole discussion in the stimulus package as well.
And we don't have the same latitudes as the general public as far as refinancing your home or your vehicles or those
Right.
types of things. And we have a different set of rules we have to play by, and we're limited on how often we can refinance our debt. But in exchange for that, we get usually much lower interest rates than the general public does. So,
Gotta say, I don't know if there'd be much of a swing between now and what we refinance that anyways.
yeah.
What did it get refinanced at? I don't remember.
1 point something,
I'm
or,
not gonna quote it off the top of my head, I don't
yeah,
recall.
it was pretty low.
I'll have to look, cause I don't know off the top of my head. I don't think it's in here.
I think it was a little over 2%.
Yeah. It was either a high 1 or a low 2.
Yeah.
It was really good.
Yeah, the debt schedules are in here, but it doesn't list the
Interest.
interest savings.
That's fine, I didn't mean to take us down a rabbit hole.
That's okay.
Any other questions regarding the audit?
Thank you.
Thank you, Marcel.
Thank you.
Moving on to appearances to the council not listed on the agenda.
We have no public at the police training room, so there's no public signed up to address anything here.
All right, moving on to item 8, mayoral appointments. I sent everyone an email, so I'd like to place a removal of appointment for Ray Crisp to the Arts Commission.
I'm gonna,
That would require a motion the same as an appointment.
Okay.
The majority vote.
so move.
Hang on, I'm writing all the names down. Brooks,
Yes,
Jacobs,
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes.
Allen. Yes. Lund.
Yes. Thank you. Moving on to miscellaneous matters from the mayor and or city council.
I guess the only question I have is, with the situations we're dealing with now, and obviously, we don't know what 30 more days look like or anything, but are we looking at stuff like waiving late fees for sewer bills, possibly moving our licensing? I think business licenses are due in June, May or June, I forget which. So adjusting those so, our restaurants are able to, all of our businesses it looks like, but our restaurants, a lot of, are able to kind of maybe get a little recovery in there before they're selling money out again.
Those are things that if the council wants to discuss that we can. As far as late fees regarding shut-offs and those types of things, we have ceased shut-off of water
Right.
service during this time frame while the state of emergency is in effect. We are still, at this point, assessing penalties for lack of payment at this time. If that's something the council would like to address to do differently, we can. With regards to business licenses and those types of things, if you recall, it's probably a year and a half ago, we changed the ordinance so that inspections for those would be done in January and February.
That's for
when
liquor.
When our staff had time.
Right.
So we didn't have any restrictions in place during that time frame. So everything, it should just be paperwork processing unless they didn't get an inspection done, which right now we're still conducting inspections on an as-needed basis.
Right.
So we would have to address that if that came up, if someone didn't have their inspection done in January, February, like the ordinance requires now.
But that's just a liquor situation there, right?
Yeah,
I'm talking about business license in general, because every business has a business license operating in Warrensburg.
yeah. Again, we continue to maintain staff and services with regards to that. If we get to a point where our staff is limited in number, that we don't have the ability to do that, then that may be something we can discuss.
Those aren't due until June 30.
Right.
Right, I mean, I know they got a little while and just
Just
kind
have
of.
some time.
Just like our real estate license. online.
Correct, yeah, which I think that's they're working on that problem, but.
And right now via phone or email, I mean, staff can process anything that still needs to be processed at this
Mhm.
point. So, we're trying to keep business as usual as best we can, while maintaining public safety and safety of our staff. I think we've put a lot of the right protocols and measures in place to do that. And so far, the public and the staff have responded well to that. Obviously, if things continue to get worse, we may have to reassess that as time goes on. But as of right now, we're trying to maintain as much business as usual as we can.
But I think it's probably not ability, it's probably more of a money situation for some of these places, because I'm sure some of these places were not operating with the, the ability to do what's happening to them right now.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a
Again, if
challenging
that's something
time.
council wants to discuss later.
I'm just putting it out there as, as things that we may want to look, not acting tonight, but definitely some things we, I don't know what else the city can do
Yeah.
to help our residents and our businesses, because, I know there's a lot of people sitting at home right now, so.
And in that regard, I mean, I pretty much directed staff to be very cautious on spending at this point, because we don't know what revenues are gonna do for the future. It'll be a few months before we see that or feel that, because of the lag of collection to distribution back to us. And right now, we can barely keep anything on the shelves, so things continue to sell. Obviously, we're probably seeing a decline in the restaurant industry and some of those other areas, but and we're definitely seeing impact within our hotels and those kinds of things. But yeah, so we're proceeding with an abundance of caution when it comes to expenditures, especially not knowing what revenues will be, and I anticipate revenue projections for this next budget cycle as being very, very conservative, if not a decline.
I hope the 2020 census doesn't get targeted too much either, though. I mean, I know they're hiring people to go door to door, but now with the college kids maybe going back home since it's online only, that may impact it. Hopefully not, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Kind of bad timing when it comes to that, but
Yes, it is.
the Census Bureau is taking measures and precautions as well there to try and maintain the validity of the census, but at the end of the day, it's rough timing for that.
Yes, bad timing.
What are we using what are the channels we're using for getting out notifications to the general public in Warrensburg? Obviously the newspaper, radio,
City
Facebook.
website, city social media, we're combining with other entities in the community to put out through all of our social media avenues,
Paper's been really good.
any of those types of updates. We have a webpage specifically on the city website dedicated to coronavirus with updates of press releases and information and links to the CDC and a bunch of those things where the public can go and find information, both to keep themselves and their families safe, as well as anything that's going on up to date within our communities itself specifically. I know a lot of our agencies are doing Facebook Live interviews and, all those types of things. So just pretty much any mechanism we can find to try and get the message out there, we're trying to utilize.
I do appreciate you updating the council as you are. That's very appreciated.
Yep.
Doug, I've had a lot of questions over the last week about the city's role in public health. Could you kind of walk us through a 30,000-foot view of our role in that?
Sure. With respect to the action that the council took tonight to adopt those emergency regulations, as a third-class city, the council is specifically empowered to adopt regulations to abate the spread of contagious disease. And so that action that you took tonight would fall within those powers. In general, the first line of decision-making with respect to public places, and that would include privately owned public places, that under state regulation falls to the local health director or the state director of Health and Human Services. And so the communities that have taken those types of actions have taken those in consultation with and in concert with those public authorities. much the same as has taken place here in the city of Warrensburg with the restrictions that were put in place by county health last week. If longer-term measures are needed, the council still has that authority under state law to adopt ordinances that are targeted at the suppression of disease and the abatement of public health situations. That is largely designed to be more medium and long-term type regulation, whereas the more emergency, the more nimble type regulation is placed under our state laws in the hands of those local health authorities that have access to that data and can respond more nimbly than we can. And so while we have seen a lot of those communities take that action, and frequently the face of that action has been the chief executive of those communities, the mayors of places like Columbia or Kansas City, the legal authority for those actions to take place is actually flowing from those health departments.
Cool. Thank you for that clarification. A lot of people aren't aware of how that works. So, anybody else have anything from the council?
I just think if we need an emergency one for some reason, we'll just pick a time. I think we're all pretty flexible if we need to have one. Just let us know.
City manager report, Harold?
Just again, we continue to monitor anything with regards to COVID-19. Staff is actively participating in the regional task force that's been stood up, and doing our best to be positive leaders within that organization. And there's great collaboration across the county regarding all these entities in trying to do this, and I think it shows well. You know, to quote Dorinda Dick, the CEO of the hospital, she said in her observation and attending in other counties and those types of things, our county is definitely making the right decisions, having the right conversations, and has the right organization and cooperation, and that we are outperforming many other regions within the state with regards to that. So just continue to urge people to be patient, to stay home, wash your hands often, and again, follow that advice of the public health agencies and those types of things. It's not something that we want to overreact and over panic on, but at the same time, it's something that we do want to take seriously moving forward. So I definitely appreciate the collaboration in the task force. I mean, that's predominantly what we've been working on for the last 2 or 3 weeks, internally and externally. So we continue to do that, and again, our city website will continue to be our communication point on having the most up-to-date information from us, as well as the Johnson County Emergency Operations Center Facebook page is another good location to get up-to-date information. So with that, I don't have anything else to report this evening.
Gary? First time YouTube live.
We've been
Recording it, we just haven't let the public know it's
Yeah.
available, but from now on, it should be available live during the meeting.
It's great. A great source for our community. So,
Yeah.
cool. Marcella, we heard a lengthy report. Anything additional?
No, just kind of reiterate what Harold said, we won't see a huge impact in the sales tax dollars until probably July because of the way it flows to the county and back to, or to the state and back to us, so we'll watch those numbers carefully and be cautious on going forward.
Carrie, anything to add? Thank you for being here. Thank you for stepping in for Cindy. You're doing a great job.
Thank you, you're welcome. No, I don't have anything.
Doug, anything additional?
So you all probably have heard in the news the passage of the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which was signed into law last week and has an effective date of April 1st. It will apply to the city of Warrensburg, and your HR director, Greg McCullough, has been working diligently to get the city ready for that transition. He and I have been collaborating and having conversations with the city manager, and we will be participating tomorrow in a webinar with others in the field to try to get a better handle on those requirements and make sure that the organization is prepared. But that's one that's going to affect a multitude of businesses across the community. So there'll be more information forthcoming.
Anybody have anything else that we
Do
missed?
we know, I mean, cause there's so much stuff coming out of DC on all that stuff, do we know what this thing really is, it's just, as far as what?
So we don't know what the particulars of the recovery or the economic stimulus bill that's being debated right now. Nothing final has taken place, but with response to the temporary changes to the Family and Medical Leave Act, yes, those are finalized now. They will affect all employers with fewer than 500 employees. There are supposed to be regulations for exemptions for small businesses with fewer than 50 employees. However, we don't have any of that information from the Department of Labor yet. So as it stands right now, effective April 1st, there will be leave rights with caps on how much an employer is responsible for, connected to childcare and care of family members that are under quarantine or are suffering from COVID-19. There are also paid leave rights with a 2-week cap for employees with certain economic caps as well. There's provisions for employers to receive payroll, so Social Security and Medicare payroll taxes, to receive credits for those to reimburse the employers for the amount that's been expended for those additional leave benefits.
And those obviously are the ones that have been affected with it. They have children under a certain age that they need to stay home and take care, or they, as an employee,
There's a list of statutory categories, but people that have children that are under 18 whose school or childcare is unavailable as those terms are defined by the statute,
right.
As well as persons who are under a quarantine order, are experiencing symptoms and seeking a diagnosis, or who have tested positive and been under quarantine. Those are the categories of situations where those would be triggered, and as well as situations with an immediate family member who falls within one of those categories as well.
So it's it's any business pretty much. So if you have one employee, you're pretty much.
It covers basically all businesses that have fewer than 500 employees, between 1 and 500.
Right, that's what I'm saying, that's why.
Right.
And I'm assuming 500 above already had these rules in place anyways, is that why they came up with that 500 number?
You'd have to ask the people that passed that law.
I'm afraid to ask them anything, so.
The majority vote in Congress to do a unilateral, and so that was kind of the deciding point, because that got I think 89% of the Americans covered underneath the act without doing a unilateral cost for everybody. So it was a political move to get it approved quickly and not have it blocked.
It's still the same of 10 people, why not 12, why not 8, why 10, you know? It's just a decision that they made, so.
I mean, I'm just saying why they
Right.
don't say all businesses, and then that way they got it. You know, but you're right, it's this, you know, it's, are you a Democrat or a Republican, and what do
They
you wanna
didn't
do?
ask us.
So, yep, exactly.
All right, anything else for the good of the cause? And we're due up for a closed session. Would you guys be okay with staying in this room where we
I
can
was
spread
thinking-
out a little bit?
I was thinking the same thing.
That'd be okay, so have
It
a
is
change.
posted on the agenda to be in this room.
Okay.
Is it? Okay.
I didn't realize that until after you
Okay.
pointed it out.
But yeah, that's I
I
think
don't
that's a
use
good
it.
idea. We can spread out a little bit in here and do that. So, does anybody want to vote to close session, or you want me to just read it real quick?
I'll get it.
You got it?
Yep. Let's see. Vote to close part of this meeting pursuant to section 610.021 of the revised statuses of Missouri relating to legal action, causes of action, or litigation involving the city and any confidential or privileged communication between the city and its representative and its attorneys. 2, leasing, purchase, or sale of real estate where public knowledge might adversely affect the amount paid in the transaction. 3, hiring, firing, disciplining, or promoting a particular employees by a public governmental body where personal information about the employee is discussed or recorded. 12, documents or any documents related to the negotiated contracts until the contract is executed or a proposal is rejected. 13, individual identifiable personal records, performance ratings, or records pertaining to an employee or application for employment.
Brooks,
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Lund.
Yes. All right. I want to thank everybody for joining us live or over in the room and in the police area. This has been a new learning curve for us, but we appreciate everybody's patience as we work through these tough matters. Please stay home. Please stay safe.
Do you want me to stay for the closed session or no?
Yes. She's.
I don't see any reason why she needs to.
I don't see
That's
why
my
she needs to,
opinion.
yeah.
Does she need to, Doug?
Somebody's gotta keep them in